how do you make all your interactions great? And the short answer is with a powerful, effective spiritual practice. That's how you do it. In Science of Mind, we develop treatment, but there's lots and lots of powerful, effective spiritual practices, and you got to find one that really does work. And when I'm talking about interaction, I'm not just talking about interaction with others. I'm talking about that everything is an interaction. Whether it be like, for instance, you don't need another person to have a conflict, right? Anybody here ever have conflicts within their own minds? I mean, it's a fairly regular thing. That's an interaction. Anything that goes on that you're doing is an interaction, and it's up to you to have a powerful, effective, and the real word here is effective, spiritual practice. I know folks, I get calls all the time from people who say, I've studied Science of Mind for 20 years and my life is worse than ever. Now, how could that be? It can only be if all they're doing is studying and they're not practicing. That is the only way, because we have a powerful practice here. But if all you're doing is studying it, all you're doing is reading about it, all you're doing is talking about it, and then when the moment comes when you actually need it, you're not using it, there's no place to rise. I know I had somebody in a class with me about a year ago who didn't make it through the whole class, who was saying, I know I'm not supposed to say I'm sick, but I'm sick. It's like, that's not using it. That's where you're thinking about it, you're studying it, but you're not using it. Because what we say after I am is one of the most powerful things we are doing to create our lives. So the last thing you want to do is be in a situation where you're saying, I am sick. You might have the illusion of symptoms. You might talk about, I usually talk when I got a cold or whatever, as just being snot passing through. I never claim something as I am unless it's something I really want I am to be. So the practice of Science of Mind is being very careful with your words, because what your words are doing is creating your life. They're not just semantics. There's no such thing as semantics. We teach here in Science of Mind that what we say has power, what we think has power. And inside that, one of the most important things that has power is when we use the two words, I am. So you want to be real careful with what comes next. And if something comes out of your mouth or you have a thought of I am that isn't something you actually want to create, I highly recommend the effective approach of immediately going, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant is this, because what I want is health, or what I want is abundance, or what I want is prosperity, or what I want is a flourishing life, and I claim that for myself. I am that flourishing life. I say that a lot. I am that flourishing life. I am that thriving. Not just that I have a thriving life, but actually that I am that, because that's a powerful place to be. Remember that any circumstance you have before you, no matter what it is only there for one purpose and one purpose only, to support you in rising to becoming who you have come here to be. That is the only purpose for every circumstance that ever comes into your life. It doesn't matter how easy the circumstance is, how wonderful the circumstance is, or how hard the circumstance is, or how horrible the circumstance is. It really has only one purpose, and that is to support you in rising to who you have come here to be. So the other day, I come in and have an to finish the editing on this week's video that we did, and which is a interviews. We did street interviews on people asking them what makes them happy, and the video came out hilarious and insightful, both. And so I'm coming in to do the final edits, and the first thing that happens is my computer crashes. And so there was a time in my life where that would have really set my blood pressure through the roof. But having an effective spiritual practice in this particular interaction, I was able to say, okay, I know I get it done, and I trust that I get it done. So it must be that I need to go do something else right now. So I went and got myself a cup of coffee, came back, rebooted the computer, and it started to work, and then the software crashed. I said, okay, I trust this is going to get done. I know it's going to get done. I don't need to be getting all uptight here. So once again, did my spiritual practice, got up. I love to walk. And so the big thing for me is whenever I start feeling something tight in my body at all, I go for a walk. I get my body moving. I move around. I try to get myself in it because I know that if I move, the energy shifts, and that makes everything is shifting, right? Anytime one thing shifts, everything on some level is beginning to shift. That's how it works. That's what we teach here. So however you can get the littlest thing to shift, that's like the butterfly effect, and all of a sudden, everything starts to shift. So I took a walk, came on back, and sure enough, finally started getting through the video and ultimately got it done. The next thing that happened on this very same day is a woman at our center who is like the matriarch of this place long before I became the senior minister here. Has moved one of my plants that I'd gotten a new plant and I put it where I wanted it, and she decided it belonged outside. So we went outside to get it, to bring it back inside, and the door locked behind us. So now we were locked out of the center without a key, and it started to rain. So I cried. And Miriam, the woman I'm with, starts to have a panic attack about being locked out. So here, once again, this is my opportunity to rise. So I give her a hug. I say, it's going to be all right. I go get a stranger on the street, borrow his phone to make a call my wife, who can call somebody who lives nearby, as we're getting soaking wet. Well, in the meantime, she's banging on the doors and windows all over the place. And with the cleaning lady who's there on Saturdays, who was downstairs with her headphones on, actually somehow heard her, came up and let us in. And so that took care of that. And so I decided that the best thing for me was to call my wife and invite her out to dinner and a movie. Because and believe me when I tell you, that's a spiritual practice too. When you do something that's fun and good for yourself and nice and interactive in a way that feels good, you are rising. That is a spiritual practice, and it shifts things. And so there I had it. I was set up now to go out. I had a wonderful night with my wife. Instead, there was a time, if I had gone through all those different things.
What happened here?
Oh, somebody's talking. Can you mute the person who's talking, please? There was a time in my life when if I had gone through something like a day like that, the only place I would have wound up is a bar. It is only because I have the spiritual practice I have that instead I was able to rise, laugh at it, and have the day turn out as wonderful as it did. That's what's possible. That's how you make interactions great. There is a quote I actually had printed on our wall here. To abandon the truth in our hour of need is to not understand the truth. Anytime I start going through anything, anytime you start going through anything that just doesn't feel right, the first place to go is whatever it takes to remember the truth. It doesn't matter. Journal, treat, go for a walk. You know, another thing that I have is one of the most powerful spiritual practices that I have is to get on YouTube and find a video that cracks me up. Because I notice when I laugh, it shifts me. And I use that spiritual practice almost every single day. Another spiritual practice I use every single day is I set the intention for my day before I even get out of bed. I don't wait till after I get out of bed and have my coffee to do my treatment work. I do it before I get out of bed because I don't want to take one step into my day without having set forth the intention of what my declaration of the day is going to be like. That's really important here. What we need to do is ground ourselves, have a strong foundation, and that's where we get to create miracles. It is through our effective spiritual practice that allows us to rise. And what you want to do is whatever is effective, whether it's laughing with a YouTube video, whether it's doing your work before you get out of bed, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's treating 50 times a day or more. It doesn't matter as long as it's effective and it shifts you so that your day can shift. Because here's the thing. It starts with who you are being. When you shift who you are being, you have shifted your experience. Once you have shifted your experience, that will then shift the demonstrations. You don't need to focus on more money. You don't need to focus on better relationships. You don't need to focus on a better job. That is the wrong place to have your focus. I know we teach that in terms of demonstration in our movement, and I am here to tell you that I have discovered something greater. And that greater is who you are being. Because the second you shift who you are being, you shift your experience, which then shifts your results. My life is flourishing and thriving as much as it is because I have taken my focus off the demonstrations and onto who I am being. And I notice the more I am being who I am being, the demonstrations are simply taking care of themselves. Time and time and time again, around money, around things working, they just take care of themselves when I sit in a place of knowing that my life works magnificently. So I highly recommend, for a powerful spiritual, effective spiritual practice, take your focus off the demonstrations and put it on who you are being, which shifts your experience, which will shift your demonstrations anyway. Thank you. I love you.